Hi, I'm Rachel from EVPL Central. Thank you for joining me for Chapter Book Storytime, the Variety Pack. So this time we are going to be reading The House That Whispers by Lin Thompson. In this book we are going to meet Simon. Simon and his two sisters are visiting their grandmother, and things are a little bit different than when they would normally visit her, and Simon is noticing some creaking and scratching in the walls and that sort of thing, and it makes him go on a little bit of a ghost hunt. Alrighty, so if you want to join us in learning a little bit more about Simon and his family, you can just keep watching. Go ahead and get comfortable and we will get started. St. Peter. Simon is my secret name. I'm the only one who knows it. I picked it out during my Sunday school class last year when Mrs. Evans was teaching us about the Apostle Peter. Me and my sisters, Talia and Rose, have to go to Sunday school every single week. Technically, it's called CCD, not Sunday school, but it feels like school, and it happens on Sundays, and I don't know what CCD stands for anyway. Nanaleen just calls it our religious education. Mom says that all of us kids can choose whatever religion or non-religion feels best for us as we get older, but everybody in her whole family is Catholic, and she wants us to know the basics. The week I picked my name, Mrs. Evans was telling us about how the Apostle Peter had been named Simon at first. She was telling us that Jesus changed his name when he picked Peter to be the first pope. What if Peter didn't want to change his name? I'd asked. Mrs. Evans sighed at me. She taught Sunday school for all the 4th and 5th graders, and she had to sigh at me a lot back when I was in elementary school. Let's all remember to raise our hands, please. I shot my hand up in the air and wiggled my eyebrows at her until she called on me. What if Peter didn't want to change it? I'd asked again. He was probably honored, Mrs. Evans told us. Peter means rock. When Jesus gave Peter his new name, he said, "Upon this rock I will build my church." That didn't really answer my question, and I still didn't see why Jesus should get to walk around telling people what their names had to be. Besides, I still liked the name Simon a lot better than Peter. So I took it. It's not like St. Peter needed it anymore. After class that day, I looked up the meaning of the name Simon too. It turns out that Simon means listen. I've never been a good listener. Dad says I have selective hearing because sometimes when he tells me to empty the dishwasher, if I'm busy with homework or practicing my soccer knee bounces, I don't hear him. And Mom says I jump to conclusions instead of listening. She says I sometimes make up the answer I want to hear instead of listening to find out what the answer actually is. Maybe Peter wasn't really a rock, solid, steady, and firm, until Jesus named him after one. Maybe a name can be something you want to be, something you work to become. Like if I call myself Simon, then maybe, slowly, I'll turn into a better listener. And, a boy. The kind of boy that other people can see and recognize instead of me being the only one who knows it. I want the name to fit me. I don't know what Mrs. Evans would say if she knew about my secret name, but probably she'd tell me that if my name's Simon, I should be doing a better job of listening in class. Look out. My older sister Talia turned 13 this year, which means that now, whenever we're driving someplace with only one of our parents, she gets to ride in the front seat. It's something that's come up a lot more over the past couple of months. Whenever we're riding with Mom and Dad usually drives and Mom sits up front, and then Talia, Rose, and I cram shoulder to shoulder in the back seat like sardines. It's awkward and annoying, and I always used to complain about it. Now though, whenever the back holds just Rose and me, the car feels a little empty, like it's too big for our family. For the trip to Nanaleen's house, Dad is driving and Talia is riding up front. "You're kicking my seat," Talia tells me, frowning back at me over her headrest. "Oh, sorry," I say, making my feet stop moving. I hadn't realized I was kicking. Talia sighs. "It's fine, I know how you are on long car rides." She means that on long trips, I get so bored and fidgety, I about crawl out of my own skin. We've been stuck in the car for over 2 hours now, which in my opinion is 2 hours too many. "Now you're tapping your fingers," Rose complains from the other side of the back seat. I clench up my hands to stop, but that just makes my fingers want to move even more. I stuff my fists under my legs. Dad's leaning forward against the steering wheel with his shoulders rigid, squinting along the foggy road ahead of us. It's Sunday afternoon. Usually when we visit Nanalene's, the fog would have melted away by this time of day. Summer afternoons in Kentucky are too hot for fog, but it's October now, not summer, and this isn't our usual visit to Nanalene's. Cool it, Bradley's, Dad says without taking his eyes off the road. Sometimes when he's stressed out, he calls us all by our last name, like he's a cranky camp counselor. If y'all are bored, you can help me watch for deer. It's not the right time for deer to be out, probably, but the fog makes Dad worried. If an animal runs out in front of the car, he'll barely see it coming. Then again, it's probably not the fog's fault that Dad's worried. He's probably just worried because he's always worried. Sorry, I say again. I really am. Right before we'd left, Mom had told me, "Don't make trouble for your dad, okay? He's stressed." I stick my face against the window for deer lookout duty. In the front seat, Talia turned back to her phone already. She's barely looked up from it this whole drive. She's been texting somebody, but I can't see who. Talia just says, not even paying attention to me anymore. I let my forehead rest against the glass so that every bump in the road makes my teeth rattle against each other. No deer. There's so much fog that everything outside the car looks blurry and white. 20 feet around us in any direction, the world dissolves. There's trees, and then there's just nothing. Nanalene's house is deep in the woods. It's a mile outside the closest town, 5 miles from the closest Walmart, and 150 miles from our house back in Louisville. I feel my legs starting to swing on their own, and I have to stop my foot before it kicks the front of the seat again, the seat where Mom should be sitting. We're almost 150 miles from where we left Mom. Ghost town. Our grandmother Nanaleen lives in an old family home outside Misty Valley. The town isn't far enough east to be in the actual Appalachian Mountains, but it still has some impressive hills. Nanaleen says the town got its name because of the fog. When the mist rolls in from the actual mountains, it gets penned into the valley by the hills on all sides and covers up the whole town in a cloudy blanket. During the summer, the fog usually clears out before the sun's even finished rising. Misty Valley is always busy in the summertime. That's when we usually come to stay with Nanaleen the whole month of July, every summer of my life. The town is right beside the lake, and as soon as the weather starts warming up, it gets flooded with families coming to camp or hike or fish or swim. They rent out the fancy vacation cottages down by the lakeshore, and there are kids on the beach from sun up to sundown. The shops on Main Street are always packed. As our car pulls onto Main Street now, I keep expecting the fog to disappear and the street to fill up, but it doesn't. Most of the shops are closed for the off-season. Beyond the empty buildings, I catch a glimpse of the Scooper Duper, which is the little blue ice cream shack down by the boat ramp that we always ride our bikes to. On nice days, you usually have to wait in line for 20 or 30 minutes just to get a cone. But now the Scooper Duper is boarded up and empty. Fraser's Market is still open though, which is good because Dad has to stop for gas. Fraser's is the only gas station in town, right in the middle of Main Street. There are days when it's nearly impossible to get a pump, but today we're the only car in sight. Dad eyes the price on the sign, frowning. 20 cents more than it was in Campbellsville, he mutters as he digs out his wallet. Can we go say hi to Mr. Ben? I asked. Mr. Ben is the owner of Fraser's. I'm trying to wave at him through the front window of the store, but I don't think he's seen me yet. Not today. I'm sure you will come visit him this week. Can I go use the bathroom? Rose asks. No. Dad swings himself out of the car, but then he seems to think again when he ducks back in through the opening. We're 2 minutes away from Nanaleen's, he tells Rose. Just everybody stay put. He closes the car door harder than he has to behind him. He's got his phone out and he's tapping something out on the calculator. With the engine off, the car is clicking a little as it cools down. Don't make trouble for your dad, okay? I wait till I'm sure Dad can't hear us before I say, why can't we get out? Talia swivels around to look at me over her head rest again. Because if you go inside, you're going to ask to get snacks. No, I won't, I say, even though I was definitely going to ask to get snacks. And Dad doesn't want to have to say no. I shrug. Well, then he could say yes. Just wait and eat something at Nanaleen's, Talia says, frowning back down at her phone. He's already having to pay for gas. Dad's still calculating something, and I realize he's figuring out how much gas he'll need to drive back to Louisville. Getting gas didn't used to involve math. Mom and Dad would just keep pumping until the tank was full. I leaned my face against the window again and peered down Main Street. With the shops all closed up and the fog everywhere, it feels like the end of the world. It feels like we're the only people left alive. Mom has always said that Misty Valley becomes a ghost town from September until May, but I never really believed her. When I was little, I thought she meant it literally. I thought ghosts and spirits would start roaming around town every fall. Now I know she just meant that most people leave. Only the permanent residents stick around, like Nanaleen and Mom and her sisters when they were growing up here. For the other 3/4 of the year, the town feels lonely and empty, like it's full of holes. The old O'Hagan house. Dad puts exactly $10 of gas in the car before we set off down the highway toward Nanaleen's house. He turns into Nanaleen's long driveway and starts inching up the gravel at a snail's pace. I'm about ready to explode from being stuck in the car, and Rose has her legs crossed tight in a way that means her question back at Fraser's wasn't just an excuse to go inside. She really does have to use the bathroom. Dad flicks the brights on to cut through the fog. They hit the old house at the top of the driveway like a spotlight. Nanaleen's is the oldest house I've ever been inside. It's a big 2-story farmhouse with a wraparound porch and a rough stone chimney attached to the front, poking up over the roof like a tower. The outer siding is faded, and the paint on the window frames and porch columns has started peeling off, but you can still sense that the house was impressive back in the day. All of the year-rounders in Misty Valley call it the old O'Hagan house, even though none of us has the last name O'Hagan anymore. But our great-great-grandfather did, and he was the one who built it. Dad parks beside the front porch, and I've started unbuckling before he even turns the car off. Scoot, 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 I tell Rose, because the door to my side of the car gets stuck. Dad tried to fix the latch himself, but when that didn't work, he told us to just live with it and use the other side to get in and out. Rose opens her door too slowly and slides out of the car, also too slow. Finally, I clamber past her and flop down on the driveway outside. At last, I say, pretending to kiss the gravel like I've washed up on a desert island after months at sea. At last! Talia comes around to the front of the car and peers down at me. "You are so dramatic," she says, but she has to try hard not to smile. "Bathroom," Rose says. She takes off running for the house. "I'm not bringing in your bag," Talia yells after her, along with a name I'm not allowed to say. "Talia," Dad says, "cool it." "What?" Talia says innocently. She pops open the trunk and drags her duffel bag out of it with one hand, and then she uses the other to pick up her winter jacket, which Mom made her bring. "I don't have any extra hands," she explains. Dad sighs. "Simon, can you take in Rose's bag?" He doesn't say Simon, of course. He doesn't know my secret name. Nobody except me does. But I change his words in my head, and then I say, "On it!" and hop up to grab Rose's suitcase out of the back. By the time I've dug out my own backpack and slung it over my arm, the house's front door is wide open, and there in the door is Nanaleen. "You made it," she says. Rose gives her the quickest hug in history before rushing inside for the toilet. Nanaleen waits there on the porch for the rest of us, her pink, veiny hands propped on her hip as she watches us unload. "How was the drive?" "Not bad," Dad says. I'm pretty sure even if we'd gotten into a 5-car pileup, he'd answer the question in the same way. Dad's a worrier, but he never wants anyone else to worry. Good, Nanaleen says. Nanaleen is Mom's mother, our grandmother. Her real name is Rosaline, but when Talia was little, she got confused about why she was supposed to call her Nana, when grown-ups would sometimes call her Rosaline instead. So Talia combined them. We've all been calling her Nanaleen for longer than I've been alive. I tuck Rose's suitcase under one arm and pull my backpack onto the other. Then, for good measure, I grab Rose's pillow and my extra pair of sneakers that I couldn't fit into my backpack, and I stagger up toward the house. "You grew," Nanaleen tells me, beaming when I get to the front porch. She wraps me and all my bags up into a hug. Nanaleen gives the best hugs. Her skin's pale and soft and feels like well-used tissue paper. She's old, obviously, but she's never seemed old. She's always excited and full of energy and wants to do 18 different things at once. Mom says I'm just like her in that way. You just saw me in July, I remind her. That just makes it even more impressive. And your haircut, it suits you. She gives my hair a ruffle, even though she's already seen the pictures. Thanks. I can feel myself grinning. Mom let me cut it short at the start of the school year. She probably would have let me longer ago, but that was when I finally asked. Mom calls it a pixie cut. I think that's just what people call short hair when it's on someone they think is a girl. And here's Talia. Nanaleen hugs Talia next, and Talia lets her, even though Talia would probably bite almost anyone else who tried that. Dad's hauling everything from the car up the porch steps, panting a little. He's always liked to carry everything inside in one trip. He says he likes the challenge of it. Nanaleen peeks over his shoulder at our now empty car. Where's Tessa? She asks. Tessa is our mom. Just like that, as soon as Nanaleen asks the question, this cold feeling starts in my throat. It pours down through my chest and into my arms and legs, flowing too fast to stop, like the water from the garden spigot when you turn it all the way up. I swallow hard to try to push it back. Dad's blinking at Nanaleen. She stayed back at the house, remember? He says, I'm driving back tonight. It's just the kids this visit. Nanaleen's smile slips as he blinks right back at him, confused. Her skin looks more papery than it did when we were here in July, more transparent. Oh, she says, then smiles again, and her face smooths back out. So fast, I think I imagined it. I tell myself that I probably did imagine it. Oh, right, of course. Take your stuff upstairs, okay? Dad tells Talia and me. I don't need telling twice. I swallow again, and then one more time until I can push this cold feeling out of my body. I pull out a smile. Sure, I say, and squeeze past Nanaleen toward the door, but Talia hasn't moved. She's still on the porch, frowning at Dad and Nanaleen. Talia, Dad says, go get unpacked. Talia makes a huffing sound, but then she follows me inside. I know when I'm being dismissed, she mutters, whatever that means. When we visit Nanaleen over the summer, Mom always comes with us for the whole month. But this trip, everything's turned crooked, like I'm looking at it all sideways. It's fall break instead of July. Talia and Rose and I are staying here, and Mom and Dad aren't. They're both spending the week back in Louisville and then coming back to pick us up next week. Dad keeps saying they need a reset. Mom says they need time to talk. I guess they can't reset or talk to each other when we're around? I think about the extra seat in the car on the drive here, the empty space between me and Rose in the back seat because Talia was riding up front in what should have been Mom's seat. The car without Mom feels too big and empty and lonely, like Misty Valley in the off-season. We've got holes of our own, a ghost family, smelly towels. As soon as I'm inside the house, I catch the smell. Nanaleen's house has always had a specific smell, musty and old, but not in a bad way. Usually it smells like when Mom used to take us with her to the huge university library, and I'd find the oldest book I could and stick my nose inside the pages, dusty and almost a little sweet. I always noticed when we first came to visit, even though once we've been inside for a couple hours, it kind of fades. But the smell that hits me this time is different. It's musty and old and definitely in a bad way. It's sour, like an old washcloth. It smells like Nanaleen's dragged her whole linen closet of towels through the mud and then left them in a pile on the stairs to dry, which Nanaleen would never ever do. It's just one more thing that's a little bit wrong. Talia and I haul our bags upstairs. Nanaleen's house has a main floor, an upstairs, and an attic. Whenever we visit, Talia and Rose always share the attic bedroom. It's the same bedroom Mom and Aunt Bridget and Aunt Shannon shared when they were growing up here, and then before them, Nanaleen and her sisters, Margie and Bree. Mom sometimes calls it the sisters' dormitory, since it had all of the generations of sisters sleeping in it. But thinking of me, Talia, and Rose as sisters doesn't really fit anymore, so now I just call it the dormitory. The door to the attic staircase always gets warped and sticks in its frame, but Talia gives it a couple tugs till it pulls open. We have to climb the narrow stairs one at a time, our bags bumping against the wall the whole way up. The dormitory stretches the whole length of the house. The ceiling is low and sloped, all yellow-white drywall that's starting to sag in some places and crack in others. I dump Rose's suitcase on her bed at the top of the stairs, and then I haul my stuff over to my own bed at the far end of the room. I stick up my hand as I walk like I always do in here, and I try to touch the ceiling at its highest spot, where it comes to a point in the middle. Even when I'm on my tiptoes, my fingers can't quite skim it. I'll probably be tall enough to touch it by our next summer visit. According to Dad, I'm growing like a weed. My bed's just the same as always. Same blue and purple quilt, same tucked in sheets, same brownish water stain running along the sloped ceiling just above it. When I plop myself down, the mattress creaks more than I remember. Talia throws her bag down on her own bed so hard it bounces. Home sweet home, I guess, she says. What are you so cranky about? I say. She's always cranky, Rose said. And just like that, she pops up the stairs back from the bathroom. She ignores Talia's glares and starts unloading things from her bag into a tidy pile on the floor. Her notebook, her pencils, a stack of library books about chemistry. Just about every month, Rose changes her mind about what she wants to do when she grows up. Right now, she's decided to become a scientist. Mom says it's puberty. It is not, Talia sniffs. Rose shrugs. Whatever you say. It's still light outside, but in the dormitory you can barely tell. The window between Talia's and my bed at the front of the house is always a little grimy, no matter how many times Nanaleen Windexes it. One of the bulbs in the overhead light is burned out, and the two that are still working flicker for a second. Right after I hear the furnace all the way down in the basement kicking on. Old electrical systems, I guess. But I can't help thinking about the summer that Talia, Rose, and me spent our vacation here hunting for ghosts. That was years ago, before I was Simon, before I'd pieced together that sister wasn't quite the right word for me. When Talia had first made up the game, when she'd suggested we look for ghosts, we all thought it was pretend. Maybe Talia and Rose still do. But sometimes I wonder. That cold feeling that had poured through me on the porch is back now, inching up my spine, ready to take back over me if I let it. I push it back down to where it belongs. Do you guys want to see if Nanalene's made snickerdoodles? I ask. Nanaleen loves baking, and every time we visit, she fills up the kitchen with homemade snacks. Her snickerdoodles are legendary. Crisp on the outside and soft on the inside, and always rolled in so much cinnamon sugar that it can make you sneeze. Rose and Talia both grumble okay, and we go down to the kitchen where Nanaleen brings out the cookie tin and lets us stuff our faces even though we haven't had supper yet. So at least some things are the same. Dad drives back to Louisville that night, right after we eat supper. He reminds us all about 50 times to be good for Nanaleen this week. Behave yourselves, Bradleys, he says, with this frown like he's trying his best to be stern. Then he plops a kiss on each of our foreheads. We'll call every day, okay? Mom will want to talk to you too, and we're both going to drive down to pick you up again on Saturday, okay? Whenever he starts saying okay like that, I know he's worrying again. I make myself smile big so he knows we're all right. See you on Saturday, I tell him. After he's gone, though, as Nanaleen lets us all three stay up late playing Parcheesi, and then as we're getting into bed, I just keep picturing him and Mom back at home alone, rattling around a house that's too big for them without Talia, Rose, and me to help fill it. I keep waiting for my nose to get used to the musty smell of the house just like it usually does, but even when I wake up hours later that night, I still notice the smell. The dormitory is pitch black and the sloped ceiling above my bed is sloping lower than feels right. And the room is colder than it's supposed to be, colder than it is in summer anyway, and everything still smells old, like old rotten towels. Alright, that is all the time that we have for this book this time. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about Simon, and if you would like to learn more and finish his story and go along with him on his eventual ghost hunt, you can come into the library and check this book out. You can call us and put it on hold, whatever works best for you. And if you want to continue on reading from where we stopped, you will want to start on the chapter called Secret Name. Alrighty, I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me. Bye!